Hello, listeners of the Rolled Table. Welcome to a special episode of Knights of the Rolled Table. A very special episode because we are all in the same room.
Yay! I'm touching Jeff right now. I'm touching him.
We're touching him.
I don't consent. No, I'm just kidding. You're fine.
Joining me this afternoon is Zach Stones.
Hey.
Carlos Guzman.
Hello.
Jennifer Stopper Crespo.
That's me.
Chris Daly.
Bonjour.
And Matt Messerman.
Hi, everyone.
These are all the cast members for Season 4 of Knights of the Rolled Table, and we are doing a very special after-season show, which is a thing
Post-season wrap-up.
A post-season wrap-up, as you might say. And this is a chance for us to talk about the season, talk about all of the things that happened in the season, out of the season, through the season, in the fourth dimension of the season, and everything else in between. And we have finished recording the last episode just a few weeks ago. And, well, what did you guys think?
This is a whirlwind season. I feel like, first time for us doing two characters simultaneously. And it was a stretch of my facilities. I don't know that I would do it again. But it was definitely an experience to be juggling, and then to have those characters in the same room was definitely, hello. Now we get to find out how good your voice acting really is, and the answer is not that great.
That's why you need to be a druid and shapeshift into something that can't talk during that time.
Well, way to break the game, Matt.
I thought it was fun. I mean, personally, I love playing all these different characters. So playing two, in the same recording session was great. It was very ambitious on your part, I think, Jeff, as a DM, just to take on multiple storylines and have them converse and all the different things going on. But I think if anything, this season narratively raised a lot of stakes for the world, which was kind of cool. We've always kind of talked about having the show, kind of have standalone episode or standalone seasons. And we're kind of transitioning into more of like, it probably helps to have a little bit of backstory and like listen to some previous seasons. But I mean, I think this season could stand on its own because there's, like, especially with the one group, the all new characters, it was very like approachable. Like you didn't have to necessarily know what was going on ahead of time. So it's still pretty cool.
Carlos, this is your first time jumping in at the start of a season and joining us as a cast member for the entire season. What was the experience like from your perspective?
As Jen mentioned, it's so fun to juggle two characters at the same time. No, my sort of instincts going in were, I worked in comic book editorial for several years, so my instinct was kind of, once you requested that we do two characters, was to try and figure out like, okay, what's the A story and what's the B story? And I felt so confused in like the first few sessions when it's like, I think he's running parallel stories. I think they both matter, and I can't just
throw one away.
one of these characters. I have to actually like fully commit to both of who they are, and then kind of just have things. It was interesting to see how like one story like took shape in a way that was very maybe not typical campaign, but like the structure of an adventure was very clear, and the other one less so. Like it did involve a temple and then eventually fighting a genie, but I think like the sort of like a bit of the meandering tone on that one made it seem sort of like, what's he doing? What sort of art film stuff is Jeff trying to get us to realize here? The power of friendship? Is it so
what was the master plan, Jeff?
What was the master plan, Jeff?
So my design process was I worked from the finale basically backwards. And the premise that I had was that I wanted you guys to struggle as people who were going to be playing two different characters, struggle between doing things that your character should do and things that you want them to do. And the way that I thought to do that was to make one set of characters that was all new, that start at this kind of low, medium level, let them just have nonstop fun all the time. Like, go and kill, level up, new items. It's great. You're cool. And then have the returning cast have this long,
miserable slog.
miserable slog, capped by an absolute defeat,
Yeah.
and then have you face off against each other and see how you would react to a situation where these are the enemies and these are the enemies, and you have to fight against each other. And so that was the premise that I thought up in my head, was to go one layer meta on it, and I designed backwards from that.
And did it go the way you thought it would?
Honestly, had no idea.
Okay.
I a lot of this was, I knew where it was going to end up, and I just kind of tried to put as many dominoes in the way as we were going. Like it felt like having a domino run where I knew where it was going to end up, but I was just going to put pieces down as you guys were going, and just knew that I just needed to put the pieces in where it was going to end up.
Well, I thought it was very fun.
Okay. Good.
I think as a listener, it's probably would coherently make a little bit more sense if you kind of are able to listen to it faster than every 2 weeks, because that's the challenge that I think I heard from some people, was just like, oh, if it's been a little while and it's right in the middle of the season or something, you might get a little confused on what's going on.
I got a little confused.
I mean, even if we're doing it, but that being said, I think it was really successful in terms of having that sort of challenge of, okay, let's see the Knights experience internally. We've kind of moved past the who are the Knights of the realm, and it's a mysterious thing, and and now it's like, now we're just in it to the point now we don't know who to trust, and that was a big theme of the season. For a bit, I thought you might be doing for about a half a session, I thought that the new group was in a earlier timeline, that it was like a prequel group or something, and I was like, wait a second, is this like an early something that sets up?
That would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a
you do
much
that,
better
Jeff?
idea. Yeah, let's
Then
Go
we
back,
just find our
re-record it.
bones in a cave. Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so what do you guys think about like that sort of internal, we don't know who to trust in the organization, and that kind of aspect that.
Well, I liked that we never really knew who to trust. Like, it wasn't clear to us as players, I think, either, because in both places we were being led by someone who seemed trustworthy enough, giving us direction, and we were just, all right, we're part of the Knights. Knights are good. Let's go. And we knew there was some sort of subterfuge out there, but we never knew who. So that was all. I thought that perhaps the people that we knew were actually going to end up being the bad guys, so to speak, for quite a bit of the season. I was all prepared to have to kill.
Yeah, from the first episode, I think Remy's group thought Remy was like, when he was like talking in blue light, he was like, "What's that blue light? What's that blue light? Must be evil." He was just on a communicator. It's like, but we were so quick to judge.
That was definitely another tool that I wanted to have, was like Alistair being like, "Hey guys, yeah, I'm on the same team as you. Like, we're cool." And Remy being very distant and cold, and just kind of leaving you like almost to decide for yourselves, not really having that like hand-holding guidance on it. So I hope that worked in creating kind of two different experiences.
Yeah. I mean, it was still, like you mentioned, having the struggle between like what you as a player would want to do versus what your character might choose to do based off of what they know. And I think you were effective in that, because I definitely know there were a couple situations where it was like, I know, like, knowing the other things I know, that how I feel about this, but this character does not have that breadth of knowledge. So, just kind of trying to play the reality of, okay, here we go. Trust in that.
And it felt good to know that you're all very competent you're all very confident Dungeons and Dragons players. So I knew that it wouldn't be new players being thrown into something that you wouldn't be able to keep in your head. It wouldn't be such a challenging amount of statistics and character
it was
sheets.
challenging.
Well,
Jeff.
good. I want it challenging, but not overwhelming to shut you out.
I think it was not challenging. The problem wasn't that we couldn't keep everything in our heads. Like many of us struggled with that. It's that like we're fine not really knowing. Everybody here is like, what's going on? Oh yeah, that. Okay, let's roll.
Well, because it would be like 4 weeks between the last time that I played this character. That was a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and in our a little behind the curtain, how we would record this was we would do a 2 or 3 hour session with one group entirely, and then the next time we met we would do the other group for 2 or 3 hours and then edit them so that it kind of ping ponged back and forth. So you were getting the first third of a record in an episode where it went from 1 to 1, and then in the second was that middle part. So definitely there was time in between that I know for, if we took a 2-week break off of something, it might be
Thank God
a
for
month.
Matt Messerman and his ridiculously detailed notes.
He's scrolling through notes right
Yeah,
now, and it's just
like
paragraphs and paragraphs.
basically our cliff notes before every session.
Yeah, it wasn't until April. Oh, it wasn't until April that we started actually doing them in the same recording where we would start having both.
Well,
And
we
started
recorded
in
like
October.
We recorded like 4 or 5 sessions with most of us not knowing what the format was and not really understanding. Just like showing up, Jeff would be like, "You're this team right now." And it wasn't really until the first episode was released that we were like, "Oh, we're going back and forth. Oh, okay, that part of that recording session will be an episode." And like we're just rolling with like trust to Jeff that like he's working on something. Just be in the moment
somewhere.
What if I just didn't include one whole campaign? If I just the whole Team Alistair stuff
that was
just
the backup
never
campaign.
happened. Yeah,
That would honestly be very Jeff Frank.
I was finished with the
not
Red
do that.
Wizard, and it's like, okay, well, you guys are good.
you guys are good. Great,
You're in
great
You're
season.
in downtime for a little while. And, well, let's talk about the 2 different realms that got introduced. So we had Red Basin, which was a desert realm, kind of different environment for us, and then we also had Castor City. Well, that's the city, but what's the? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and then Castor City.
So Castor, what would you have said you based? What did you base Castor City on?
I'm not really sure. I kind of wanted a jungle city location, like a bigger South American city type of feel to it that is a big metropolis, but also is adjacent to really lush, beautiful environment that isn't, I think, normally part of kind of how we think about metropolis areas, right? They kind of sprawl out and
it seemed kind of Moroccan. Because of the bazaar and the that's what I was envisioning as all these like kind of low kind of clay structure buildings and everything with like
Agrabah.
Yeah, kind of, but a little bit more modernized, but like a medieval version of that. So, but that's what was in my head.
Yeah, and the geography for the Red Basin I stole from the Forgotten Realms map. There's that big desert in the middle there. I was like, oh, that's cool. A big desert's cool. So that's what I put that in the middle of the
Perfect
map.
place for a miserable slog.
Yes.
The Ifriti touched, and like out of everything, I feel like their whole camp and like that whole experience, like basically meeting a new culture, that was kind of a standout for me for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's from our ancestry and culture, more ancestries and culture, I think, from that module. And yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, this will be perfect.
The idea of a spoiled child with like infinite powers.
Infinite power, yeah.
Teeny tiny living space. Any favorite moments that anybody had from besides that one? That's a good one.
I mean, our entire party getting killed.
Our first TPK.
Yeah, I realized it fairly early on, and I was like, I guess I got to be careful in how I say this. I was very excited about it to a degree that some would consider gross. So I just thought it was like, oh man, Jeff's gonna kill us all. This is gonna be amazing. And as it went down and as it happened, it just sort of like the excitement of what's essentially like a boss battle in Dark Souls going terribly wrong to all of us, and having other characters having to witness other characters die was just like, man, this surprisingly has a little bit of gravitas for the fact that he's essentially just doing the absolutely worst thing a DM could do to their party, is just be a complete.
Well, and the whole setup for that was like, I remember I think going back and forth with Jarek as Sarsa, and like it was like, how, like, we can't not go, like that's again playing with that thing of like, what do I as a player want to do versus what would my character do, and like, yeah, you gotta go. And just sitting there and kind of feeling like I'm in the back seat, I'm along for the ride, and I was literally the last person standing in that fight.
That's
just
right.
like, this is what's happening, I don't have any control, I'm just gonna trust the DM that there's either gonna be some kind of an emotional payoff or something. And obviously, it played out like it did, but yep, that was a thing.
And I think we had just leveled up when that happened. So it's like, oh, cool, I'm going to try out these new things. I got this new 4th level spell. Let's do it. And then just wiped out. I mean, like, I think I brought up a gargoyle or something, just crushed. Just immediately. Like, oh, we're not going to survive this.
Yeah, those characters were good ones for that, like, character arc, that situation. Like, I think Jarek and Sarsa especially, Branch too, like, all those characters, that the ongoing characters that were in that, certainly for, like, Jarek's whole struggle of, like, he's kind of, like, compelled to do good even though he hates it. Like, it's the perfect thing. I think he was always dreading, that he'd just, like, lead people into a situation because he felt compelled to, and then they'd all die, and he did. And I think that, like, that went along for me with, like, losing a level, which was partly mechanically so that Jeff could, like, level out the two parties to even it out. He had to level up one group. I remember the conversation where I was talking hypothetically with Jeff about, like, well, it'd be great if he has a new characters, but, like, we don't want level bloat in our, like, whole story. So if you could come up with kind of a cool way to, like, introduce new characters and level them out, and, like, there they were. So dropping a level from those characters, that combined with, like, that bigger emotional moment, I think, like, Chris just texted us to, like, level up characters to level 9 for the next season, and I did both, so there's no spoilers about who's going to be in the next season, but I leveled up both my characters to level 9, and I think it, like, totally shifts Jarek's, like, outlook for the future of, like, what he's developing and what he's worried about. It's a powerful moment to lean into.
And I think especially since Jarek had just learned that sand mold earth cantrip, and then
nice
for you to
moment.
then try and use it again but not have it.
Yeah, he had basically had that just, like, one, I think maybe, was it just the one level that we had from the beginning that we had added? Yeah, and Jarek's mindset in that was, like, I just want to learn spells, this cool, like, book. I wrote a scene that Jeff has that we never recorded about, like, Jarek being offered, like, cool warlock stuff when he, like, levels up, being offered these, like, gifts of, like, ooh, you can have this magical sword. No, you could have this, like, companion. It's Warlock level 3, the Pact Boon. You could have this companion to work. I don't want any more companions. I don't want anybody to talk to me. And then they offer him this book, and he's like, wow, a book. Like, I don't think Jarek's very educated. He probably doesn't read very well. So, like, a magical book was huge for him. And so he just kind of learned stuff like the sandcastle cantrip and stuff that were just fun for him. And that's exactly what he lost. And I think after that, like, sacrificial moment, he'd just be very compelled to, like, I can't screw around with this other stuff. I have to survive, I have to fight. And so, like, his track, including that next level, I think is completely different. So that's been what I've been pondering, like, now in the moment since that, because we were just leveling up.
For me, I liked the human enterprises like undercover mission that we took on. I thought that was fun. The tower, it was the sort of Die Hard episodes, and we became clowns because he had a fetish for clowns or something like that. And then he was like, wait a second, you're not clowns.
There's a lot I cut from that episode.
Pushed him out.
Did you cut the clowns?
We mentioned that.
I couldn't cut all of it because then none of it would make any sense. But there was a lot of double entendre that was just like, no, this can't be in this.
Well, the funny thing is that it started off with this boss battle, which went pretty quickly because we pushed him out a window.
Yeah,
and then he died. But then it became this. Now we have to get out of this tower, and we're also creating a slave uprising from all these people that are like, we can fight, yeah. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that whole progression was great. I was definitely thinking through favorite moments from the season, and I feel a little bit spoiled because that was a great moment. That was a great moment that I kind of, like, made from Igneous jumping out knocking him out the window just because I had a new ability where I knew I could float. It's like, ooh,
Mhm.
Chris just broke a
Slow
window.
fall.
I'm definitely knocking this guy out the window. But then, like, immediately after that, Igneous, like, he was the last one standing in the druid fight. That was a huge moment. And I think in whatever was going on with Jarek in parallel to the knocking Uman out the window was also a huge moment for Jarek. Maybe it was the puns. I just felt like this has just been so awesome. There's been so many fun moments, this boop to boop to boop that Jeff set up that, like, I feel spoiled. Like, we need other fun moments for everybody because this has been amazing. There's a bunch of those.
I also liked in the on the other party when we went into the temple and the riddles.
Yes.
The riddles with the really old snake, or not snake, but
Mhm.
like snake temple person. And
Yeah.
It's like, question number 5.
How many questions are there?
16.
Oh no, it's Jeff. This could go on and several hours.
We're all having flashbacks to
Yeah.
the magic item scenario in season 3. How many could he have?
2
Probably a
trains
lot.
are heading towards Castor City. It's like, oh no, but that was really fun.
One moment that I really liked, and it was such a, it ended up being a longer thing. I hadn't obviously planned any of it, but it was just it was before you guys were going to meet the first contact, and Igneous was going to go undercover.
Oh, yeah.
And you just,
The
it was just
fashion
like,
show.
let's,
The fashion show was earlier, but getting
Right.
Igneous ready.
yeah. So like, it was like the night before, and it was just, let's go over and see what's in this square.
Oh yeah.
And like that brought us to like the Petra's pockets, and like it just had a couple of other little random
The
things.
Castor City tourist
right.
booth that was like what's
The
what-
cursed item.
I want some, yeah, the cursed, everything was cursed.
Right. Yeah. It was, and like, I didn't plan any of that. It
That
was
was
just,
great.
you guys were like, let's go check it out. And I was like, sure, let's keep saying yes. And so that was just pure improv fun that we, I think, made some great scenes from.
It's awesome.
A fun moment for me as a player was when you surprised us all with Acevedo popping in to the
Mhm.
middle.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Big shout out to Matt Acevedo joining us.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
Whenever we did Cass's voice later, we're impersonating our impression of Matt Acevedo
Yeah, right.
and not in
It
any way
wasn't
impersonating
Cass, who was
Cass.
like, "Oh, hello, everyone."
Yeah, right,
It's
yeah.
basically Matt Acevedo was like, "Oh no."
Oh, it's
And
Just
then
him
Matt,
being
Matt is
excited.
such a lovable guy, Matt Acevedo, obviously. That having him betray us was
Yep.
really clever on your part.
I couldn't
because I
believe
didn't see
it.
it coming.
Well, let's see what he has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Acevedo! I'm just kidding. He's not
How dare
actually-
you!
Man.
That's what the extra chair was for.
I don't have any other questions because I didn't really prepare anything
night,
for this.
Just like
Night,
the
everyone.
season. Jeff
Just
didn't
like the
prepare.
season. I'm just showing
What
up and
happened
hanging
at-
out.
We found all of XX Bloody Heart stuff, Jeff. Do you like know what's up with that, or were you just throwing that out there?
Yeah, spoil it, Jeff.
What's going on?
Tune into season 5, dropping on January 45th or whatever.
Tune in next
Your
time.
problem, Chris. That's what he just said.
Well, no, I had asked Jeff about that in our recent session 0 for season 5.
Don't tell us there's a plan. Don't tell us what the plan is. Just tell us there's a plan. We
Yeah,
need our
so-
XX future.
So tune
Yeah, we'll see.
into session 0 because we have a brief discussion about that. But
Nice.
yeah, I think the brief synopsis.
Synapses.
Synopsis in the brain.
The brief
Synapses.
synopsis of that is sometimes DMs can leave little hints and Easter eggs, especially if they know somebody else is going to take over. And we're doing it in a kind of a unique way where, you know, we are multi-DMing and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of fun to sort of volley up something to be like, play with this. And I will.
Super.
I also think, though, it's wonderful, though, that the tables got to get turned because I feel like you, Jeff, as playing XX Bloody Heart and having those items created quite a bit of havoc with them. So allowing them to inhabit the world in which you are DMing and now they're your problem was kind of fun to see that get flipped on its head.
Well, that's why I didn't get it to the end of the season. But
That's true.
Igneous has the camel cloak, and he's just like I am. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? This is useless. Which is the same thought I had as a DM in season 1 of like, yeah, fine, whatever. You can turn into a camel. And of course, Jeff made that into epic plot points.
See, a tool, a random item is just a tool that hasn't found a use yet. So,
how about as your characters? What do you think was a turning point or a key, maybe development point? Like Zach kind of mentioned about Jarek. Like, so from a character standpoint, did anybody have like, oh, this was a really big moment for their character in this season?
I mean, I think for me, for Deidre, the relationship with Yenny, like that kind of like, here's somebody that actually kind of like looks up to me like a little bit. And I think that like they are so polar opposites, but like they have such a very genuine, I don't know, that was one of my favorite things to kind of see her, because she kind of, you know, I feel like as far as my character, she had probably the flimsiest backstory that I've ever come up with. She was just, you know, it was very kind of cobbled
This
together.
is a high elf rogue.
Yeah, just, you know, I've been drinking a lot of
and a
champagne
halfling
lately.
barbarian.
Yeah, so but like the fun of those two characters was kind of definitely a highlight for me, and I felt like kind of helped to give her something to really kind of care about and to like be a little bit more of a driving factor for me on that one. For Sarsa, I think physically watching Jarek get killed was tough. And like, I mean, obviously like they've already been like thick as thieves, but like that just kind of was tough. That was probably like, so I don't know if we'll see if we see more of them or whatever, but like that probably would have a lasting impact, and being the last person standing in that.
There's a little follow-up question. Where do you think the relationship with
Will they, won't they?
No, not with Yenny and Deidre, where do you think it should go or could go?
I mean, I could see them like just going and causing havoc, and like probably like, I think in Deidre's mind she thinks she can maybe somehow like My Fair Lady this, but that's probably not what would happen at all. And I think Yenny, even though like she's such wonderful chaos energy, like I think she brings out a bizarre kind of softness that is so that would be kind of, I know it's not a very definitive answer. It's more like the feel of it. I don't know. Carlos, you play Yenny. Tell me what your thoughts would be on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think that Jen's point, part of the thing with Yenny was that when I was talking earlier about sort of trying to figure out sort of which was the main storyline and which is the side storyline, I spent maybe 30 minutes on making the Yenny character as a whole, whereas I'd spent maybe like 2 hours coming up with the Delit stuff. So she didn't really have like a lot of backstory. I just sort of had an idea of an attitude, which is like, oh, okay, sort of characteristic and uncharacteristic. Small halfling who usually we interpret as being kind of like a hobbit version in Dungeons and Dragons, and then just like a brash orcish attitude to that, and it's like, oh yeah, that could be fun, that could be a good time. But there really wasn't as much of an idea as sort of like what's her point of view, like what does she want out of life. Like most of that stuff started coming together later and sort of like forming later. So the relationship with Deidre was really kind of something that came out of the play and not out of some prescribed idea of like, oh, these are the characters that are getting along, we should emphasize that or something. Like it really wasn't happening that way necessarily. It was just something that was coming out of the actual play sessions, which I found to be great.
That was fun.
Yeah, and is something very very much our improv training obviously makes us gravitate towards like, oh, this is working, then this is like sort of what we got to make work. And I think as to their future, it's interesting to hear Jen's perspective, because to Yenny, what she finds so great about Deidre is that she finds things offensive and distasteful and sometimes frightening, and yet she will go ahead and do things anyways. And so Yenny is very much of the mind of like, you know, doing things is like the ultimate, the ultimate end point to anything, right? Like people that talk and all this stuff. It's not like she looks down on it. It's just like it loses her attention. She doesn't want to sit here and plan out the heist. She wants the heist to go wrong so then she can like come up with something stupid or brash to kind of like do in the moment. And she thinks that like the emotional reactions that Deidre has to this stuff while still like going forward to her makes her look up to her and think like she's really cool and really someone to partner up with, because she knows if she goes on and makes a bad decision, then Deidre will be there next to her, like suffering for it and helping her out of it.
Cutting off fingers.
Right. And she gets to keep the fingers too, because Deidre doesn't want them. So
Yes, no doubting.
And Chris, you got to make 2 new characters, Biscuit and Carver.
So good.
And so walk us through playing 2 new characters this season.
It was very fun, and I often start with an accent, so I was like, I want to have somebody that's just, down home Appalachian boy, kind of from where I grew up, and I liked the idea of playing a gnome. We haven't really had like a fun little gnome main character, so I liked the idea of like having a wizard, which I had never played before. So just somebody that was like really excited and really like goofy, and he has this little sub quest that he didn't tell everybody about, and it just never came up. But that was really fun. And then Carver was almost the opposite of that. It's the robotic and mechanical, and I didn't want to make him, Data from Star Trek, but I didn't want to make him. I wanted to make him like he's trying to figure out what his purpose was, not just as a construct, but as a being. Like I don't know why I know the things I know, and like there's something deeper. And the amnesia hook has been done before, but I thought from a construct's point of view, it's a little different, because when you have a brain, it's like, and you're mind wiped or whatever, it's one thing. But if someone can like literally erase data or something, or like reset you or something, it's different. And would he even care? And so like the fact that he did, and he kind of relied on Jarek and Sarsa and Branch and Deleth to kind of like bring some purpose to his life. I think that was, or his existence.
I liked all the little flair you threw on all of his abilities.
Artificer flair.
Yeah, so like the hummingbird and the
yeah.
all of your spells had a little twist to them, and I found that really enjoyable as a listener as well as a player.
That was a fun thing to. And then I lost them halfway through the season. It was like with the app, I was like, oh no, they're gone, and so I had to kind of like remake some of them. So, but yeah, it's a fun thing as an artificer, I think, to figure out a way, because it doesn't necessarily, it's not divine, it's not earth based, it's not from a book. It's like you can kind of make up what your artifice power is, and it sort of talks about that. So that was fun. Branch.
Branch's big moment was probably his death.
Yeah.
That was the moment that stands out for me. I enjoyed meeting Mr. Bill.
Mr. Stick.
Mr. Stick was also there. Yeah,
Mr. Stick.
Yeah, and then the giant squirrel as well. That was Bill, right? Yeah. So that was fun. And then one thing I've learned from playing D&D with all you guys is you all put way more thought into your backstories for your characters than I ever do. I come up basically what you said, Carlos, for years. It's about as much I'm like, all right, here's their starting point, there's their voice, here's who they are, and this is kind of their general point of view on the world, and then everything else I just figure out as I go, because I have a terrible memory and I will never remember my backstory for anything. Arix was even less than that, because Jeff just said, hey, make a sneaky character. Okay.
Cats are sneaky.
Here's a roguelike. It's a tabaxi. I haven't played one of those in 20 years. Let's do that.
And originally you were going to have Southern accent, but then I messed that up.
No, I ended up with the Texan accent-ish for RX.
Oh,
but I was going to have a Cockney accent.
A deeper accent.
No, an Australian accent.
Mm-hmm.
You did the Cockney accent, which was too close. So I just threw it off into a different direction, and then you also had a Southern accent. I was like, oh, well, they're different enough. Let's just see what happens with him. So yeah, RX didn't
like
really...
The order of our introducing our characters, I think, was like me, which made you to be like, oh, I gotta change this character, and then you reset to Texas, and then he introduced Biscuit, and you're like, screw it, no, I'm keeping this one.
I'm gonna commit.
I think RX's moment where I started to latch onto who he was as a character is when Biscuit got really invested in the nicknames. I think RX just kind of found that endearing, and so then he just I just sort of latched on to Biscuit at that point. Nice job, Slingshot.
Yeah.
I think for Igneous, I think also, I'm glad it's a common theme that none of us put a ton of backstory into Igneous. I definitely thought a lot of like coming through the portal forward and him being very alone, and not a lot of like what happened before that, which I've fleshed out a little bit since then. But like because he's been alone, I think his narrative of just like the very classic D&D kind of found family. I fit in here. This feels safe. I don't have to be quite as alone is probably the biggest thing for him. But also at the very end, like impact to be determined forward, I think meeting Sindel, meeting this like Phoenix avatar entity, which he is basically his like god, and like his timeline is like he left the 15 years Sindel was like in charge there is the 15 years he wasn't there because he was alone here, and so he didn't know that was a thing. He didn't know the Phoenix was in the world, and so just running into this person and discovering in kind of like an off camera discussion that he would have been chatting her, figuring out like, oh my gosh, you're the Phoenix, you're here, you've been here. I think all of that would be new for him, and very much like how that affects him is to be determined going forward.
The Phoenix Born is from the Ancestry and Culture module that we've kind of adopted this season. I wonder if anybody had any thoughts on how having it implemented as a core part of our season affected things. Or
I mean, it directly led to Yenny being the character she is, because that that module decouples the ancestry and culture. So making her a halfling who was raised in orc culture made it so it's like the most straightforward example you could come up with in that book, right? It's like you literally cleave something and attach it to something that shouldn't work, but it does, because it's like that's where they were raised. So the halfling does not have the size or the bulk of an orc, but will behave as if they are an orc because that's the society they were raised in, and those are like the values that they hold and have. And so like being a barbarian who's a halfling who constantly tosses themselves into the middle of battle, however effective that ends up being or not, is like seemed like something exciting to play, fun, and directly inspired from that, even though all it's using is components that already exist in the player's manual. I didn't go with something like a Phoenix Born or a Tabaxi. I just went with the components you already have, and since this essentially lets you treat them like Lego pieces, I just went, well, these two Lego pieces shouldn't fit together, but they will.
I really want Yenny and Gravely to meet.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
They're sort of
Two
like
halves.
Maybe they
exact
will.
opposites.
We can make it happen.
You never know.
She would destroy him.
Carver wasn't he didn't. I wasn't directly inspired from that, but I did take some inspiration from it in the sense that like when he had his memory loss and then he was kind of reactivated and sort of raised for several years by a gnome who was kind of an inventor of his own, like a toy maker. So a lot of his current knowledge revolved around toy making and carving and like making stuff for kids, and that's where all the little doohickeys and doodads for the spells came from, is in the form of these little gnome toys. And as this is spoilers for the season, but in the last episode during that final strike, Carver's sort of sentry mode activated, and he actually has an AC of 20 now, but throughout the season he had an AC of 13 because a lot of his stuff, I told Jeff, like, I'm not going to give him certain things unless there's some need to activate a shield and extra artificer or warforge like extra ability. So he was actually pretty like low, but now he's like super tanky, which was kind of fun.
Kill mode activated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It covers in kill mode.
Yeah, that group. Like I ended up with kind of a running joke of like Jarek explaining like if I had hit anything, I would have used this sword and it would have been impressive. There was like 3 points in the series where he did that, and like thinking back, that's because like he really didn't fight anything really except for Gohal going completely badly. We just sort of like we negotiated our way through some situations, and there was some moments where he personally just didn't go like sword mode like the purple worms and stuff, but mostly that group was just kind of like talking, role playing, solving problems, working
I would
around.
like to know how many times I've attempted to inflict wounds
and
and not
has it ever worked?
hit with it. And it wasn't until that last boss fight. And yeah, there it went.
Dreams do come true.
Oh.
Can I want to ask, so from an encounters standpoint, you had a couple of memorable encounters. We had Go Hall twice, level 1, level 2, Go Hall, what do you call it? Like ascended or whatever. We had the purple worms towards the beginning. We had, what was your favorite encounter? Like the red wizard, the ogre CEO, the druid under the sewers.
Hard to pick a favorite of your darlings. I did absolutely love smashing you all into the ground as Go Hall and imagining the way in which to try and make that really seem impossible, and then to make it impossible, because like most of the time when you're designing, like, okay, how are they going to fight him? What's their weakness? What are the things that they can use? It was just like, well, he's just going to overwhelm them with fire and suffering. And so like that was a fun thing to think about. I think
Jarek's probably going to talk for a minute or two.
Yeah, let's see. Smash him down. That'll really bring him down a peg. Get him to shut up for a minute. I really like the way that the going through the sewers unfolded to like pick people off.
That was fun.
And then to start it with a disadvantage of having to free everybody first was a highlight. And yeah.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
The final battle. Did you intentionally not take layer actions and legendary resistances and legendary actions, or was that like?
Or did you goof?
No. It's not a goof. It's like, but like typically like with big final bosses or whatever, they have like when he got stunned, I was like, oh, he got stunned, like, and I was surprised that happened, but I didn't know if that was a.
I basically, for that character, just kind of beefed up I just kind of upped some stats of a regular Afriti Genie monster, and just like doubled the damage. I made them go more often in the round and things like that. They weren't a true like legendary boss type of thing, so I just kind of hobbled them together.
Do you remember what his hit points was?
I think it was
200.
What did we say it was? No, it was like 500. You guys got to. You guys did over 500 hit points and damage, I think. Yeah.
How many did Zach? How many did Charkandras and Drop Off?
Ooh, I would guess Charkandras probably had around 200 something. I'd have to go back and look because I have actual stats for that. Drop Off was like a character. There's things I wish I would have done a little bit more with Drop Off, but he was like a statted, like a 10th or 11th level character. So I think he was more, I'm going to throw. He didn't have a ton of hit points on his own, but I'm going to make you fight this Hydra, and I have these traps and stuff like that. So he himself wasn't a lot so much as like the encounter had more to get through.
I think for Kishara, with her 2 forms combined, it was about 300 hit points, because like her and her sort of human guys was actually only about like 90, but she was a 17th level wizard or something like that. She had 9th level spells and everything. Wow. But she wasn't as powerful. But then when she turned into her like snake, Yuan Ti form, that had like 200 hit points. But it was all just fangs and multiple head attacks and stuff like that. It was much more melee. So yeah, but 500's a lot.
So final tally was the amount of damage you did was 455.
Oof.
Was the total in 32 hits that you guys got on it.
Yikes.
So,
but those stuns definitely turns the tide for sure.
They did.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to know about the final battle. I know you said you didn't really have it. You didn't really plan how it would go. But did you kind of expect that we would have fewer PCs at that point, that we would have taken some of us out? Because we were all fine going into that final battle, so each of us was playing 2.
This is a follow up.
Did you think the
PvP
PvP would have taken out some of us, or like lessened our hit points or whatever?
follow up to the Royal Rumble?
I didn't have a plan. It was just I knew. I
don't
knew
know why I asked Jeff. It's
guys,
always going to be the
That
answer.
was your season.
What was the
summary.
script, Jeff?
There wasn't a script. I only knew you guys were going to fight each other, and whatever damage you did to that, you were then going to have to fight Go Hall again. And so I had some things plan to help and like
Mhm.
maybe I could have some extra lifelines or some things happen in the pike. But it was all just they're gonna fight and then the boss battle fights. Like the thing where you fight each other will only damage yourselves.
Yeah.
It's a lesson in solidarity, because like if you fight yourselves, you're not fighting the actual bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So a lesson in class solidarity for everybody.
Well,
And
we did a
also
good job with that.
the god intervention from a couple of people that had died, that was interesting too, because like they all received some sort of boon in the middle of that battle.
That's right. You let me wild shape again.
Yeah.
That was nice.
I had
I
something
got
for everybody, but I don't think I
what
needed
was
you.
it? It was the moon. What was it?
You had a
Moonbeam?
moonbeam that
Moonbeam.
was just like permanently there. That didn't require concentration.
Permamoon.
Permamoon.
That's OP.
Carver had
Also, when you can't get your pants back up, permamoon. That's a different combat
Yeah.
tactic.
But yeah, it worked out.
I never know what Jeff's gonna do, but I can often trace what ends up happening to like. I remember having a DM conversation about that, like the level thing. Like, oh, I see how impacted him, and going back to like how he became Giacca in season 3. Like, yeah, I could see how that happened. I never would have expected it to have the outcome it did, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Even talking about like having guests from the very beginning, we've talked about like, yeah, we can bring in guests for a episode or two. And they could end up being a bad guy, or they could die. We can have a lot more like fun and dynamics with characters dropping into our story format that don't have to be, long hundreds of episodes characters art. And then if that character dies, it's like a big emotional deal. You can bring into somebody,
right.
fall in love with them, and then take them away. Damn Cass. We want Cass. So what do we need? We need to know what happened to XX Bloody Heart.
Lingering question.
Lingering questions, yeah.
We need to find Cass again.
Oh, no, we-
Square up
No,
with
Cass
him.
was in the
Cass
final.
He
was
was
there.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was there.
He apologized to Remy. We ate some pockets.
True. We want to hear.
Never
Matt Acevedo do
apologize
that.
to
We
me,
need to-
though.
What else did we talk
I
about?
want to know what happened to the knights that we had previously seen but didn't see in this season, because if we have encountered a situation where knights were killed or any of our previous characters taken out, did they go into hiding? Where have they been? Right, that's an open question for me.
It's an opportunity for other DMs to prune the tree a little bit.
Oh yeah, that wasn't a question for
take
you.
out take out
I
any
am not going to kill
troublesome-
off anybody else on screen or off
Okay.
that's owned by somebody else. I learned my lesson in this
Oh yeah.
second
Cobbles.
season. Yeah. So if we're gonna kill off a character or a PC or something like that, we'll do that
Pour one out
honorably.
for cobbles.
Yeah.
I hope Jarek brings that book to Celius.
You didn't have the book anymore.
Oh, that's right. It got taken away when you lost your.
Who were,
your
no,
moment.
we were sending. Who were we sending?
Biscuit
Celius?
went to
Biscuit,
Celius.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's right. Oh, they would get
Jarek
along
and
well.
Sarsa are dropping off Biscuit in Marcasia with Celius at the new library.
Oh, I forgot that.
Falcon Reach.
I haven't heard that episode yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think we talked about RX is going to recruit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of
He's
sense.
kind of like, he's going to sneak around, going to recruit a little bit.
Y'all want to be a knight.
Hey, I got this organization. It's real nice.
Like the least charismatic. Yeah, it's fine.
And I think Carver, I see him, he's a support character. So I see him and his Iron Legion or whatever, his two friends.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that he ended up with buddies.
I see them kind of like scouting around, doing like little field medic-y kind of stuff. Like, here's this thing I made for you. You can only use it as long as it takes me to get to the next thing and make something for somebody else.
Just don't ruin Sarsa's cup.
Oh yeah, well that's going away at some point. At some point, it will just stop working.
It will have been well loved by then. It's already
She'll
well
really
loved.
need a
At
drink,
some
she'll
point,
pull
you
it
never
out.
know when it is. It will pour its last pint, and you
That's
have
why
to
you have to
treasure each pint as
Drink
if it's your
twice
last.
as much. That's
Yeah.
like the motto of my life.
That was a fun
And
little
Sarsa.
moment of like creating that, and Sarsa being like, "This is the greatest moment."
That yeah, as far as like moments, like that was. I think she was very genuinely touched by that.
Oh, I liked the what was it, the mansion that we all went in to rest?
Oh, yeah.
That was all your deep inner thoughts.
It was
A bunch of casses.
a bunch of gases. Yeah, that got. I don't know how much of that made the final cut.
Casses and coal flint spires. And
We were talking before we started recording. My husband has commented on some of the bleed of these characters into my daily life, and I mean Sarsa. I believe it or not, I drank a lot of whiskey before the show, but he's commented. He's like, I can tell when you've been playing Sarsa, and then lately a lot of champagne, and I do a lot of gesticulating with my hands and kind of fall into this timber. And he's like, oh yes, you've been playing a lot of Deidre, so the bleed is real.
you're gonna come home from work and be like, "Get me a Chardonnay, please, husband."
Those words do get spoken in our house. I have some very elaborate house robes as well. I don't have the little kitten heels with the fuzzy pom-poms on the front
Yeah.
yet.
Essential.
Someday.
Well, if you haven't heard already, Chris Daly is going to be DMing season
Hey.
5 of
Yay!
Knights of the Roll Table. Chris, is there anything to look forward to in season 5? Anything you can tease at this point?
Well, we talked a little bit about the themes of the previous seasons, how season 1 was sort of discovering who you are as heroes and this Knights organization, starting small, and then season 2 was kind of a little bit more about discovering a greater realm and coming up from being an underdog, like unlikely heroes, like now that you have a little bit of power. But that season was sort of, you guys are, you're local heroes, that's fine, but there's more important people, but all of those people have problems, and people that start from lower levels can kind of rise up. Season 3 being very we revisited some characters. It sort of showed a little bit more of the world threat, how there are all these people that are trying to kind of usurp power in different areas of the realms, and how characters that we've met before are starting to come together. And I think season 4 sort of elevated that, and with the great turmoil, as Jeff has coined it, showed that all throughout this world that we've created now, there's a lot of these different characters. In this season 5 session 0 episode that we did, we termed those evil rulers, we gave them a term called elites. So the elites that are now in charge in many of the realms will be explored. And if anything, this is going to be, now that the Knights is like an underground sort of in survival mode, and we've sort of eliminated the who can we trust kind of aspect of it. Now it's going to be gathering information.
Well, exciting stuff to look
Yeah.
forward to. Thanks again, everybody, for listening, and thanks to all of our players here for joining us. And you guys, thanks for a great season 4.
Thanks for DMing.
Yay! A toast to Jeff.
Huzzah!
No. Follow us on Instagram at
Roll
Table.
Table. Instagram and Twitter.
And Clubhouse.
So before season 5, we're going to be doing some one-shots.
Oh, yeah, some one-shots.
Several from all different domains. One of them is going to be like a battle royale kind of situation.
So excited for
It's going to be guest DM'd. We're going to do 1 or 2 sort of mini one-shots at different points in the realm, so you'll see all that.
Jan is
coming
coming back to DM
Yeah.
a one-shot,
Mm-hmm.
which will be fun, which has some characters that we had from a previous one-shot.
Shenanigans are gonna go down.
And then we'll have a season 5 session 0 that we already recorded, and then we will have season 5 air after that sometime in July. So
I can't wait.
Whoop whoop.
should be fun. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Now
Go
go out, get that vaccine,
And then make life an
Make life an
adventure.
adventure.
an adventure.